This episode of Hockeytown West Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce the smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust in Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use code THPN. Summertime and the trimming is easy.
This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West Podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
Welcome back to the Hockeytown West Podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Nick.
And it's been a little bit since we last posted an episode, eh?
It has been.
There's
been a lot of news, especially today. But
there's a lot of stuff that happened. But, before we jump into that, man, how you doing?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Moving on.
A lot of life changes. A lot of life changes. So,
a lot of positive changes for you.
Yeah.
Positive life changes. That's what we like. But I mean, I don't know about you. It's crazy to think that the pro hockey season in North America, both the leagues that were still going, ended in the same night last night. Florida Panthers are Stanley Cup champions, and the Hershey Bears are back-to-back Calder Cup champions. So I want to start with the Florida game. How did you feel about that series? How did you feel about the game?
When Florida went up 3-0, I'm like, this is over. Like, Florida's going to win this. And then Edmonton stole the one game, and I'm like, that's a throwaway game, 8-1, whatever. Like, Florida just didn't show up. It's bound to happen, whatever. And then Edmonton started gaining momentum, and I'm like, they might do the damn thing. So it was exciting to watch. I mean, everybody, I felt like Twitter was like, I don't know. I deleted Twitter for a couple of days off my phone, and I got back on it yesterday, and it was just like everybody was pumped for Game 7. They're like, "This is the series. This is the storylines." And like, I had my dinner, I had my snacks, I was ready to watch the game, and it was a good game throughout, and it was close. I mean, I think that's what most people thought was going to happen with that. And the other game was close too. The Hershey game went into overtime.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that went into overtime. Actually,
I thought Florida was going to win this. Like, I had several bets with Florida was going to actually pull it off at the end there.
Really?
Yeah, I made a lunch bet with a guy at work, and he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I think Florida's going to do it. It's so hard to win 4 in a row. And I know Edmonton did it when they lost the first. They did it a couple times. They lost 3 in a row, and then they went on these crazy win streaks. But it's so hard to close somebody out, especially on the road. So I was like, I think Florida. The home team had the advantage. And Paul Maurice was like 4-0 or something like that in Game 7. So I was like, I got to go with Florida with it. So glad it went out. I mean, honestly, I didn't care who won. It was going to be I was going to be happy for either route. So
it's fun sometimes not having a dog in the fight because you're like, yeah, I just hope it's good hockey. And it was an incredible series to watch. And you got to watch some of the best players. And, I'm not Florida's biggest fan by any means, some of the guys in the team, but Paul Maurice, man, what a gem. Good for him. 30 years coaching and finally gets that moment. And you could tell he appreciates his team and the family that they are. And that's what he kept talking about was family. And, it was a cool moment for him. So congrats to him. And the Florida Panthers, first cup in the 30-year history of the franchise. That's pretty cool too. Congrats to ESPN on missing the first cup lift in franchise history as well in the broadcast, continuing to do great job in the playoffs. Thank God the final next year is on TNT. Oh, I'm so over that contract.
How do you miss that? I just didn't understand.
It's basic, like, what they're going to do when they hand it off. They're going to lift it. Follow the guy. Anyways. Then on the AHL side of things, Hershey doing Hershey Bears things, wrapping up what some would say is one of the best seasons in AHL history when it comes to their record. And Todd Nelson, former Griffins coach, getting that back-to-back cup. Dylan McElrath as well, former Griffin, getting the back-to-back cup. I can't believe they did it. Like I can because what they did all season, but I just can't believe it happened. And someone pointed out a crazy fact today. It was that the last time the Stanley Cup and the Calder Cup were awarded on the same night, the Hershey Bears won the cup.
That's weird.
Yep.
Not counting last night, right?
No, it was back, I think 2013 was the year it happened. No, sorry, it was 2009. It was 2009 because Penguins beat Detroit and Hershey won the cup then. So that was the last time it was awarded on the exact same night.
It's crazy. Coachella looked good this year too, and I thought they may have had I thought it was going to go possibly Game 7. Like I was on that edge. They played well. I mean, it was a tough series both ways. So, but congrats to the Bears.
I'm sick of them. Hopefully Todd Nelson gets that NHL job so they can finally have a downturn over there, and we don't just need to see this consistently back to back to back to back.
Definitely deserves it. I mean, he deserves a chance in the NHL. I know there were some rumors about him going to Columbus, and so it'd be interesting to see if that gets played out or wherever he could possibly go. I don't know. Hopefully there's a spot for him.
If Columbus was smart, they would hire him, but they're the Blue Jackets organization. Sorry, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, sorry, Elaine. Other off-season news that happened today, there's just so much that happened today because both of those things happened literally last night. You wake up and all that's done, looking at the celebration videos, and hopefully Matthew Tkachuk is going to have a Alex Ovechkin-like summer with the cup here because I think we need that kind of entertainment in hockey. But the Red Wings started to make moves and shocked all of us. Now, we won't go too in-depth with it. We're a Griffins-focused podcast when it comes to the Red Wings organization, obviously with the Toledo Walleye as well. But we've got to talk about these. So Andrew Gibson gets traded to Nashville. We get a second-round pick back and a winger. I don't know much about him, but yeah, it's not what we expected. We kind of expected to see him potentially playing here in Grand Rapids next year.
Yeah, they said there was a log jam with defensemen, so that's why they were looking to trade Gibson. But based off of what we saw, he could play both sides, so I don't understand why they traded him. I don't know. It's weird. I was a fan of Gibson. I was excited to see him come out to GR either next year or the year after. So that was disappointing. The Finnish, I think, is a Finnish guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got, and from what I had saw, he was playing in the men's league, putting up some decent numbers. So I don't know if, with Stevie, you never know what the lineup is going to look like or who's going to be here on training camp or game 1. So wait and see, with the draft coming up, possibly maybe it's a bigger trade for later, which.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense is that it's a bigger trade for later. Like the guy we got, he's 18 years old, like you said, playing in the men's league over there, putting up decent numbers. He was drafted in the 3rd round of the 2023 draft by the Predators. And yeah, it's interesting to see where he will fit in. But you follow that up with the trade announcement that sent Red Wings Twitter into a complete downward spiral today. I don't think we've seen a spiral like this since Verana was put on waivers. So Jake Wallman gets traded to the San Jose Sharks for future considerations, the guy that's always getting around.
Future considerations.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not many stats on this guy. He's moved around a lot. No stats on the stat sheet. I don't know, maybe a locker room cancer?
Thoughts on the future considerations is that San Jose has a lot of considerations in their future. So I don't know what that's going to mean. Obviously, Steve Yzerman's cooking something up. You don't make a move like that without having a plan in place from the experience that we've seen him have. And we obviously have full trust in what he's doing. We know what he's potentially trying to build and what we've seen him build in the past down in Tampa Bay. But this one seemed to really upset fans, and that's just because we're a fan base that gets really attached to our guys, which sucks. I mean, Wallman's a great individual, great locker room guy, obviously a fan favorite, throws out the gritty on some incredible winning goals. He's just a genuinely fun person to be around. Really seemed like he really loved playing in Detroit. But it's where we got to remember this is a business, and they got business decisions to make, and we're not going to like them all. And I've said it before. If I peel it back, Wallman, he's a good defenseman. I think he's a guy that his play was elevated by playing with Mo Seider. I think he spent a lot of time in that first line with Mo, because of that uplift Mo was providing him. Is he a defenseman worth $4 million almost every season with what we're trying to build? I think that's what Steve had to make the decision and say no when it comes to that. So I don't know. It's one that no one's happy about, but the people who understand what's going on and can see the bigger picture, I think they all understand.
I think what spun everybody out was that like there's other defensemen that we should have moved and more expensive defensemen that we could have moved. And the fact that like Jake Wallman outside, like he did that charity event with Vladdy for KiwiCo. He did the other, like he's a community guy and he's done a lot for it. So a lot of people liked that and wanted, and he's doing the jersey tag, the logo, like the winged wheel. So like fans love that. And I don't know, he just was in the community, so we thought we were going to keep him for a little bit longer. But it does open up spots for our defensemen. One guy in particular, Albert Johansson, like he slots into hopefully Wallman's spot, or you put Simon there, right? Because you get Simon and Mo on the same slot. So yeah, very very interesting to see that trade. I looked at the draft order and I saw San Jose picks first and then 14th. So maybe it's tied to the draft and like who they pick. But to see such a low return for Jake Wallman was kind of surprising to me. I think that's what was more, or people were getting mad about.
Yeah, I don't think it's there. Obviously, the return, we won't know what the return is until we see the full trade when this happens. And like you said, I think it's tied to the draft. I think we'll see a lot of stuff come out on draft day or right beforehand. We're recording this, it's 11:30. At least we're live still at the point where Steve Yzerman likes to make late night trades, so we can get it into the episode if it happens. But
do you have it
who
open
knows?
In case?
Oh, I'm ready, man. I'm always ready.
Okay.
I think though, like you said, big picture, it opens the door. It clears a little bit of the log jam. Obviously, there's still a few, what do I like to call them, boat anchors in the way of the log jam that need to get cleared out of there. And, there's a lot of rumors around buyouts and what that possibly looks like when it comes to these trades too. And I don't know. The next few days are going to be very interesting. I'm glad we took a little bit of a week off to reset, because I think it's going to be content go time here for pretty much the rest of the month and half of July. So yeah, this is going to get interesting. But enough about the Red Wings. This episode is all about grading the Griffins defensemen. Our last episode around the Griffins was grading the Griffins forwards, and it's time to take the defensemen to school and show them what grades we're giving them for this past season. So let's start it off with the guy we just mentioned, fresh off of signing his NHL contract. There's 1 year extension, I should say, 1 year, 2-way extension that he got with Detroit. Albert Johansson. Nick, what do you give Albert Johansson for this last season, his second season in Grand Rapids?
So Albert, we're going right down based off of games played. He played 66 games for the Griffins. It was his second season. Last season, he played 53 games. This year, he scored 6 goals compared to 5 from last year, 15 assists. He had 10 assists last year, 21 points, +7. He was a -7 last year, 46 penalty minutes, 100 shots, and then 1 game-winning goal. I gave Albert an A. He earned it. I thought his play improved drastically from last year. He was already on the spotlight with Steve. I gave him an A. He finished, even on the defensive side, he was second on the D for goals. Simon beat him out. Third on D for assist. Brogan beat him and Simon beat him. Third on the D for points. Simon and Brogan again beat him. He was right up there with Simon, and Simon's playing with the big club. And who got the first call for the defense on this year for the big club? Brogan Rafferty. So it kind of makes sense. Give him the A. The 1 game winning goal is probably maybe an A+. Maybe I push him over to that grade. But huge improvement. I'm happy that he signed the 1 year. I know it's a 2-way contract, but I'm hoping he earns that spot. They're clearing space for him. I think he is playing for the Red Wings next season, either in that 7th rotation spot or he's in the regular lineup. So, I mean, that's my take on Albert Johansson. He's one of my favorites.
I think he'll be in the 7th rotation spot through preseason, and then they'll see that they're stupid to keep him there, and he'll be right in the lineup. Like, you know me, I've been high on this kid for a while now, and like you, I think he had an incredible season. It was after being sheltered under Ben Simon the first year he played in GR, sheltered on the 3rd pairing, not getting a lot of big minutes. And there was a lot of games this season that Dan Watson put a lot of trust in him, especially when Simon was called up, and he had to coach him up to that top line, or he was playing with Simon on the top line all season. So I give Albert Johansson an A+, honestly, this season for me. He was fantastic. And the reason I give him that A+ is where I think back to the Flying Toasters game where he broke into the zone, went down into the slot, dangled a guy almost out of his skates and roofed it backhand over the Belleville Senators goaltender. And I looked at you and I was like, I didn't know he could do that. Like, I didn't know that part of his game. Like, Albert Johansson reminds me a lot of Brian Rafalski. Yeah. Quiet, but can be lethal, but plays the defensive position so freaking well.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a good analogy, to be honest.
Yeah, I see him not back in Grand Rapids. I don't think that it would take something pretty catastrophic to happen. I think if you look at the Wings defenseman, you got a veteran and a rookie, and a veteran and a rookie on the defense back there. I think they're going to have a pretty darn fun year back there. So we'll see what happens. But A+ season for Albert. Had a lot of fun watching him this year, and it'll be sad not to see him in Grand Rapids, but it was fun. Moving on to the next guy, Mr. William Wallinder. He played 65 games rookie year in North America. What grade do you give Wally?
Wally, oh gosh. So Wally finished with 3 goals, 12 assists, 15 points. He was a -4. He was dead last. 10 penalty minutes with 59 shots on net. I am hoping that Mr. Wallinder, I think he played only 1 game or 2 games the season prior, so I didn't put his stats in there. And then he was injured. He didn't play the last couple. I'm hoping with Volley for next year, we see more of a Albert Johansson turnaround is what I'm hoping for. I don't think this was a good year for him. He was kind of more on the sheltered side on the 3rd pairing. He just, I don't know, like it took him a while. It's taking him a while to kind of figure it out. He was a really good skater, but he made a lot of mistakes, I felt. So I'm going to give him probably a C+.
Wow.
Yeah. C+. When we did see him being flashy, like it was outstanding. Like it was fantastic. Those goals that he had were just like, I was like, holy crap, there he goes. I felt like maybe he just had a very short leash with Dan Watson this year. And so I think that's why. That's why I'm hoping that this next season he gets that more freedom. He's able a little bit longer leash, and we see an Albert Johansson game out of him next year. And he should be on the top pairing next year with maybe ASP or
keep dreaming, buddy. No, I see what you're coming from on that.
It was his first year too, so like maybe I'm a little harsh. I don't know.
You're usually the harsh one on this. So I think based on the facts, right, he was sheltered on the 3rd pairing all season long. I don't think he actually ever got an opportunity on the 2nd pairing. If he did, it was no more than 5 games. He got the exact same treatment that Ben Simon gave Albert Johansson in his first season. And if you look at the roster that the Griffins put out each game, he was playing with somebody different all the time. There was very few stretches this season where he played with the same guy back-to-back games. So with that fact and all that, I'm going to give him a little stronger grade. I'm going to give him a B because the tool set is definitely there to turn into something really special. I mean, we talked about it a couple times this season. When he gets down low up at the goalie, which defensemen really shouldn't be in that area that often, but when he gets the opportunity to jump up into the play and get down low, he's lethal. He's so exciting in the slot as a defenseman, which is insane. We saw it when we were at practice, and we saw it in game a couple times. We saw it once in the playoffs too. It blew our mind. And I just see so much potential there. Were there mistakes? Yeah, there was plenty of mistakes this season, but there was a lot of good on defense too, a lot of good shutdown plays. And when he's got to get a little rough and tough, he was not afraid to. He showed zero fear of anyone he was facing. And yeah, I just think the sheltered play didn't help boost any stats or really show him off. But when we were able to spotlight him and throw highlights of him out there, they were usually pretty impressive. And one of the things we all knew about him coming into this organization was his skating, and his skating is phenomenal. And if he continues to build on that skill set, but also can continue to build on the offensive side and the defensive, is he, Detroit after this coming season? Probably not, but there's a lot of time left with this prospect. And we've got, this isn't a Simon Edvinsson, it's not Albert Johansson, it's not a Mo Sider, it's not a Sandin Pellikka, but it's a guy that could fit in down the road, be a key depth piece or a good trade value. I don't know. Anyways.
I like Volley.
I love him. I love his personality out there because he just looks like a lost dog sometimes, never like his play, but when he's interacting with the guys, he's always kind of like, I don't get the joke or whatever, he just seems like a fun guy to be around. I don't know. But yeah, that'll be my grade for him. On to the next guy, the journeyman. Brogan Rafferty.
The mile man, yeah.
The Million Mile Man. Brogan Rafferty played 62 games with the Grand Rapids Griffins this year when he wasn't driving back and forth from Detroit when multiple call-ups. Hope those mileage paychecks were sick, Brogan. Hope they're funding a good summer vacation. But Nick, what do you give Brogan Rafferty as a grade for this past season?
Mr. Brogan, 4 goals. He was 4th on the defense with goals, 25 assists. He was 1st, 29 points. He was 2nd, +3, 8 penalty minutes. He wasn't really in the box a whole lot. Had just under 100 shots on net, which was 3rd for defensemen, and then 2 game-winning goals. That's crazy to me. This was his 4th year in the AHL. Played with Coachella last year. I'm wondering if he has any regrets about that coming to GR. But he had a career highs with Coachella last year. So this year he was more on par with San Diego when he played with San Diego the year before Coachella. But he was, I don't know, he was 2nd or 3rd pairing. He got switched up a lot. He was either with McIsaac when McIsaac was with the team, Shimmick, Albert. He was with Albert for the majority of the time. And I gave Mr. Brogan an A. I think he was kind of like the Austin Sarnik of the defensive end, like underrated, did his job, came in, like led the team for like the veteran leadership was there. And like he was, like I said, he was one of the first call-ups for Detroit, but I think that's just because they were trying to stay away from the veterans or stay away from the rookies. So I gave him, I give him an A. Did I say A? A? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you did. No.
I'm going to stick with A.
An A is a fair grade for Mr. Brogan Rafferty. I actually went A-.
Oh.
I know.
Why?
Right?
You want more goals?
Because no, like the offensive output from him was incredible. Like for this season, I was very impressed with that. Even in the playoffs, he had 4 assists in the 9 games there, which was decent output for what he was playing and what role he was playing in the playoffs. I look back to last season's playoffs where he was with Coachella, and in 26 games, he had 11 points. So if he played the full 26 at the same point pace, he had a better playoff year this year than he did with Coachella. But on the defensive side, there was just too many plays that stick out in my head where he got walked by somebody or something crazy happened. And I'm just like, Brogan, man, come on. What are you doing? Like, you're better than that. And then he usually turned it around pretty quick. So that's why I went from the A to the A-. Like the offensive output, incredible. Loved everything he did on that side. I think he was a really important defenseman when it came to teaching the younger guys the offensive side of the game too, in practice, outside of the game. So I think he did exactly what they brought him here to do. The defensive mistakes sometimes did catch me off guard.
That's fair. I wonder if him and Wally would be paired together next year on the 1st or 2nd line.
I think that would be a really smart pairing right there. I really do like the idea of that. So, yeah. We'll see what happens. On to our next guy here. The captain, first-year captain, Mr. Josiah Didier. Not first-year captain. He's been a captain in other organizations, but first-year captain for the Griffins. What do you give Josiah Didier for his grade for this past season after he played his 61 games?
This was a tough one. So his stats for this year was 4 goals. He was tied for third. He had 4 assists, 8 points, +6, 54 penalty minutes. A lot of those were fighting. He was sticking up for his teammates. Can't be mad about those. 1 shorthanded goal. Only defenseman to have a shorthanded goal. And 1 game-winning goal. Tied his career high with 4 goals. He was on the lower end on the assist stats. This guy's not really a stat guy, though. So it was like hard for me to kind of grade him because he brought in leadership. He brought in the physicality. He stood up for the guys. A lot of times he was third pair with Ballender most nights, or the extra defenseman. He rotated in or out with the veteran rule. It's so hard because like those things you can't. There's not a box to check those off. Those are harder skills to put a grade on. And this is probably where I'm going to get crazy. I'm going to say, I think he was a B+, A-. Like, I think he was right in that range for what he brought to the team. I think it took him a little bit of time him and the team to warm up to each other, and to Waddy. But I think what his role was, I thought he did it really well. I probably took off some points just because of the muffin shot that he has,
Yeah, that slap shot. I hope he works on that this summer.
Yeah, I hope. There was a lot of times that you see that wind up and it didn't really go much, or it snuck in somehow, and we're like, "What? How did the goalie not see this?" But I liked it. Yeah, Josiah this year, so I thought he played well, and it was definitely a surprise. Like we didn't know what we had when he got here.
Yeah, I gave him a B+ on the season. And like you said it perfectly. There's not really a stats box to check for what he brought to the team this year. He came in, nobody here knew who he was. He was obviously known for his leadership. He was a captain with the Providence Bruins before he came here. He played with the St. John's Ice Caps, and they were a team. But he brought so much leadership in a situation where when he walked in and we were trying to figure out who the captain was going to be after the first couple of games, we all kind of assumed it was one guy on the team, but it didn't turn out to be him. And a lot of fans went, what did Dan Watson just do? And we didn't understand it at first. And I think it was our listener, Michael Asante, right, that reached out to us and was like, hey, you guys need to know the background on this guy a little bit more, and talked about his leadership. And after that conversation with him and watching Didier this season, we saw that play out. He was a true leader on and off the ice. And the way he'd stick up for these kids out here, man, there was very few captains on this team that I remember being able to jump in and scrap like that when one of these rookies was getting picked on by, guys twice their size. Lash did a good job quietly taking care of the rookies. And, I think back to Jeff Hogan. Jeff Hogan would beat the crap out of anybody if he wanted to. So what Didier did, it was really important this year. And his physicality, like we saw it in so many games, it got the boys going. He go out there, throw a couple big hits in a shift, and all of a sudden they were buzzing. And that's exactly what you're supposed to do as the captain. Keep the guys going, but also be a true leader. And we know, there was plenty of meals between some of these rookies. We talked about that with Amadeus. Didier and him sitting down talking together and just getting to know each other. And he did that with a lot of these guys from what we've heard. And yeah, he good first year as a captain and really earned our respect for what he brought to the team.
And he's coming back. He announced that he was coming back for his, I think, 10th season, 11th season. So
yeah,
I'm excited. And I feel like we saw it too during the practice. Like he was always around the rookies. He was always like, that father figure, I guess you could say, the locker room dad.
Oh, 100% the locker room dad. Every post-game video they shared was always the only dude with his jersey off, just chilling there, just looking like a dad. 100%.
He didn't have the beer in his hand.
Dude, you know what? After the last game, he probably did. But anyways, yeah, we like having Dids around. It's been fun. So on to the next guy. Played 54 games, and I think I know what both of our grades are going to be for this player. But Mr. Simon Edvinsson. Nick, what do you grade Simon this year?
A. Let's move on. I mean, it's the quickest recap. He only played 54 games because he was with the Wings for the second half of the season, which rightfully so. And he had that call up at Christmas as well. And I mean, he did when the game was tight, like he took over. You could tell like that he wanted the puck on his stick. He was pushing for goals. He was pushing to set people up. There were multiple times that I was just like, he's going to try to win this game right here. His stat line, he had 8 goals for the season. That was first for the defenseman. He had 22 assists, second for the defenseman, 30 points, first for defenseman, +5, tied for third, 51 penalty minutes. A lot of that was fighting at Belleville. 2 power play goals, first, 102 shots on net, first, and 3 game-winning goals. So, I mean, he was right on par with last year for stats. He played 2 more games, played this year, 3 more points, and he was a +5 this year, and he was a -3 last year, which, I mean, there wasn't many positives from last year.
Who wasn't a minus last year?
Yeah. Penalty minutes were pretty much the same, 52 last year, 51 this year. Or 50, yeah. Played a lot better, I thought. A lot more confidence, less boneheaded moves second half of the season. I thought he really dialed it in, and that's why I'm giving him an A. Like, that's what I wanted to see out of Simon. Being such a high draft pick, I wanted him to see smarter plays, in the offensive and defensive zone, and continue to compete and have that motor and not give up on plays or give up when the puck is going the other way and he's coming off the ice. Like those are the big ones that I can think of boneheaded plays. But yeah, I would say an A. A.
Yeah, just like Albert, I'm gonna go A+. I mean, dude, we had a lot of question marks, going into the season based off of last season. His antics on the ice sometimes got him into a lot of trouble. He got his 9 games with Detroit and looked impressive. And then when he ended up in Grand Rapids at the start of the season, a lot of people scratched their head, but then he looked at Detroit's defensive situation and you're like, okay, it makes sense. Like he needs that one more year here to develop. He didn't get a full year here with his time in Detroit, but like, dude, he did everything right this year. He was a leader on the ice. He would take ownership for his mistakes. We saw it. We talked about it. When he'd accidentally screened Kosa on a goal that gets past him, they immediately would talk to each other, talk it out, try to figure out the game plan, how to not have that happen in the future. And a lot of those conversations were initiated by Edvinsson owning that problem that he created and going out there and trying to correct it. And we saw that countless times in the season. And it was so good to see that from such a young kid. And then he also gets the bonus plus from the A for, beating up Angus Crookshank against then that Flying Toasters game and getting the crowd going with that. Oh, I'll never forget Simon Edvinsson dropping the gloves. Like that is like a core memory right there for me when it comes to the Grand Rapids Griffins. It 100% is. So he had an incredible year. I know we're not going to see him back in a Griffins uniform unless something disastrous ever happened, and I don't think it's going to. He's such a solid defenseman. He's such a smart player, and he's going to go just absolutely terrorize the NHL next season, and I'm so excited to watch it. I cannot wait to see how this kid develops, and hopefully we get enough time of the ice with him and Mo Sider together, because I just think that's going to be so much fun for all of us to watch all season long.
I'm glad this year that he actually dropped the gloves, because like he kind of went with like what Mo was doing, is just trying to hold people back. So I'm glad that he kind of released that anger, that frustration, that temptation, and was able to get some punches thrown in, because he did play a little bit more aggressive this year as well, which was good. And I think development wise, like he needed this half season to be down here, and it helped.
Yeah,
and he looked solid in Detroit. He looked super solid in Detroit.
Good.
So.
And like it always looked like everyone last season was trying to pick on him. Like he's Detroit's shiny prospect, they're going to go out there and try to get him riled up, and it worked sometimes. And then he finally said, you know what, screw this. I train in MMA. I'm going to just show everyone not to screw with me. And yes, it was a small forward he beat the crap out of, but at the same time, like he just bodied people all season, out muscled people on the play all season. And I'll never forget as well, another core memory this season for him was that hit in the playoffs against Milwaukee right in front of me on the glass there, where he looked down and said some kind words after he slammed the guy down there. But just like being able to be that aggressive beast out there, but also just play so defensively smart. Like he's going to be such a key player for the Detroit Red Wings going forward. It's going to be so interesting to watch him develop. I'm so excited.
Like the playoffs, like I just wish you would have played that final game. Like I think the team would have been a very different situation for Grand Rapids in that last Milwaukee game. So I think that's, I don't know. I think that's
I wish because that's the only 3 games we lost against Milwaukee were without Edmonton in the lineup. But what future injury were we preventing keeping him out of there? A Calder Cup is one thing, a Stanley Cup's the other. And you gotta protect your assets. And I'm proud that the organization did that and didn't try to force it. If he wanted to be out there, him. Like there was no way he didn't want to be on the ice trying to get out there and get that chance to move on. But if he was that beat up and then you go to face Coachella, like, dude, not a good situation. Let's prevent long-term injury. And yes, it sucks, but with how deep this Griffins team was, you would expect them all to step up. We weren't just missing him in the last game, we're missing a couple pieces on the back end there. And that's probably why we didn't move on, but it's what this next season's all about. And now we'll move on because we've given enough of an ego boost to Simon Edmondson for this episode, I think. But before we move on to the next guys, we will send it over to DraftKings, get our ad break in here real quick. And when we come back, we'll wrap up the defenseman and the episode. So Nick, go read the ad.
The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boost, and so much more, don't miss out as the Stanley Cup playoffs wind down. Currently, the Florida Panthers are a plus 102 money line, and if you are new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help go for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Will Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. cdkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
And welcome back. All right, let's wrap up this defensive review for the Griffins with, a guy who also got to play his first year with the Grand Rapids Griffins and in the AHL, his first pro season, Antti Tuomisto, a guy who we didn't really know what was happening at the beginning of the season because he played 2 games and then disappeared to the point where we started joking, where's Tuo? Like we were going to make signs and put him in the arena, 100%. And then all of a sudden he ends up in Toledo for a few games, lights it up down there, comes up to Grand Rapids and plays a full season. We found out he was injured. So what do you give Mr. Antti Tuomisto after his 50-game rookie year?
He's an interesting prospect. His stat line, 5 goals. He was 3rd on the team, 12 assists. He was 4th. I'm not counting Shimmick. If you go through the Griffins stat line, 17 points. He finished 4th, plus 4, 24 penalty minutes. He was 6th in the defense. 1 power play goal. He was 2nd. 74 shots on goal. He was 4th. And then 2 game-winning goals as well. A lot of game-winning goals from our defensemen. Like you said, injury at the start of the year, went missing. He was on the 3rd pair with Wallinder. Slotted some first-line time with Albert when Simon was gone. He was with Shimmick at the end of the season. Some nights he was with Rafferty. So he was kind of jumbled up a lot. I thought he played really well. I just don't know what his path is because he was like, he played overseas, then he played in college, then he went back overseas. I'm hoping this year he has more of a consistent partner and more time on the power play because he has this crazy shot and he's not afraid to shoot it. I'm surprised he doesn't have more goals as the defenseman. I'm going to give 2-0 just a solid B. I don't think he played bad. I don't think he played good. I think he was just kind of above average, for where he was at. With as many partners that he had switched around, I think I think the team really didn't know how to utilize him either, maybe, because he's like this tall, kind of. He's like a shooter. He's like kind of maybe like Ghost Despair up in Detroit. I think he kind of plays that style. He's not, just crazy shot, ready to launch it whenever. Um, I think that's where I want to put him, as a B.
Two takeaways from that is one, I will now be calling Ghost Despair the rest of the next season when he resigns, hopefully.
I hope he doesn't.
100%.
I hope he doesn't resign. I don't.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that after the draft. But 2-0, I'm gonna have a controversial take for everybody here. I give him a B. We'll start there. That's not the controversial take. Controversial take is, I think he leapfrogged William Vollinder on the depth chart of defensemen this season.
I would agree with that. I don't think that's controversial, just because he already had the time to play in North America and get used to the size and the ice and the timing, where Volley had to have this year to do that.
Correct. But even outside of like the timing and everything, just overall defensive skill and offensive skill, I think he produced better this year. Like you said, his shot's freaking ridiculous, and you're surprised he doesn't have more goals. Well, he's got to hit the freaking net. A lot of those shots hit the glass and the boards. They did. He probably honestly had 150 shots on goal instead of 74, but a lot missed the net, man. That's one thing I'm sure he'll work on in the offseason. But I just really like the game he plays. And, you mentioned he had some time with Albert. He spent a lot of time with Simon when Simon was here. He was on the first pairing most nights with Simon Edvinsson. And that right there, where you're seeing William Vollinder sheltered on that third pairing all season. You watched Albert Johansson sheltered the season before. 2-0 was on that third pairing for like the first 10 games, shot straight up to the first pairing. Dan Watson and co really do see something in him. There's a clear love for what he brings to the table from the coaching staff. They loved having him up in that first pairing, and having him learn from Edvinsson, I think, is going to pay off huge next season. I think you're going to see him really take that first line defenseman spot in Grand Rapids next year and really own it. And I think we did a really smart thing with playing him on that first pairing so much and giving him those minutes. And then when we started to watch him run power play units too, was it great? No, the Griffins power play was ass. But at the same time, it wasn't just 2-0's fault. There's a lot of things that contributed to that. But when he was out there, it's his first year in pro hockey, and he was running the top unit in the nights he was running it, and he looked well in place. He looked perfect out there. Like, he looked like he belonged doing that. And if he can really figure out his shot next season, we have something dangerous on our hands here that I think is going to make Detroit go, all right, we really do got to start moving guys around here. This guy's going to be knocking on the door any day now. What do we get out of him? I think this year is going to.
You think he's a first line center? First line D. Sorry, first line defenseman.
For Grand Rapids this coming season, he will be on the first line, 100%. I'd bet you money on it and use DraftKings with code THPN.
I'm not drafting that. I'm not betting that.
But yeah, I fully think he'll be the top defenseman this coming season, 100%. He proved himself this year. Is there stuff to work on? Of course, it's his rookie year. But the potential that he has is through the roof. His ceiling is very high. His ceiling's a lot higher than a lot of people thought when we drafted him. What?
I don't know. I'm not buying it.
Why? You spent much of the season on the first pairing this year.
I don't know. I'm not buying it. I didn't see it. That's just me.
I'd have to go back and look at the lineups, but I think 60 to 70% of his games this year were on the first pairing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think he I don't know. I don't think I literally wrote in my notes that I don't think he makes it to the NHL. I think with the skating and just the way.
Are you high?
No, I wasn't. Like, that's I I don't know. I just didn't see the same out of Tuo. Like, yeah, he has this great shot, but I didn't see as much. And like, maybe they were kind of just rotating him through the lineup and partners because they just didn't know like where to match him with or who to match him with. But
I'm confused where you're coming with the rotation from. I didn't see him rotated through the lineup as much as you're saying. He spent the majority of the season on the first line on defense with Simon Edvinsson, with Albert right behind Simon, playing the same side as Simon, with either a Brogan Rafferty or whoever else was slotting in there.
I just searched his name through the photos of the lineups that I had saved. And I saw a lot of different like different pairings. I was like, this was odd. So
yeah, I'll have to revisit that next episode for you and do a little bit more research. But this is not a kid that's not going to play in the NHL. Whether it's in Detroit, I don't know, because there's a hell of a lot of question marks around Detroit right now. What's going to happen next? But he will play NHL games, 100%, 100%. I knew that would be the prospect that threw us off the rails in this recording too. I 100% knew it. As I looked at the list, I'm like, it's going to be 2-0, 100%. I knew we both had different feelings on him, which is fine. That's what makes this fun. Which is funny. We almost gave him the same grade, but
the next, like, these were the harder ones to grade because they didn't play a whole lot, and if they did, it was more like rotational pieces here. So like our next guy who played a lot of games in the AHL was Radim Shimmick, but he's gonna be an honorable mention just based off of he played only 9 games for Grand Rapids, which is weird. He was here for a while. He was on the roster for a while, but he was like moving stuff and taking care of home stuff. So we're not even really going to dive in and giving him a grade. But like the next guy, like Wyatt Newpower, 34 games played. Where do you grade Wyatt? Like that's a I feel like that's
how you took this over and reversed the roles here. It was very well done. Wyatt's a tough one, man. Like you said, it's tough to grade these guys because of the amount of games they played. But I try to bring it down to that sample size and what they're expected to do on this team when they play, right? These are your guys that are not playing every night. They're rotating in. They're brought in for a spark. They're brought in for grit. They're brought in for injury. Who knows what, right? Wyatt's been around this team for a while. He's always been a fan favorite because he can throw them. He can throw them well. Yeah. He didn't throw them that great this season. He might need to work on that in the offseason if he's going to continue playing like that. But at the same time, when he did play, he played defensively well. It wasn't a lot of mistakes on his end out there. I mean, for what he played, he finished the +6 this season. That's impressive compared to last season where everyone was a minus. But I don't know. I give Wyatt the solid veteran B-, man. I think that's what I'm going to go with there, because he was thrown in the playoffs when we started doing, the 11-7, and we were like, come again? Pardon? He's playing playoff games? Didn't play much in the regular season. And he played great defensively in the playoffs and was an aggressive piece out there to keep the other team in line. So I'm giving him the solid veteran B-.
Yeah, it's tough. Like he finished the season with 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 points, +6, better than last year. 58 penalty minutes, led the team. It's 34 games. He led the team and on the defensive end of 58 penalty minutes. 28 shots on net. For me, it was weird because of just the consistency piece. Like, I felt like he played a lot more in the beginning of the season, and then he was kind of sprinkled through 1 or 2 games throughout the month, and then he played like we didn't play that many playoff games, and he played 3 of them. And I'm like, it's just kind of odd to like throw him in at the end of the season kind of thing. In our most important games, we're throwing in Wyatt Newpower, who barely played through the regular season. Like, that was odd to me. I would have to give him a C+, B-. The Griffins did a little recap on him, and they said he missed 4 games due to injury. So, which
he did.
Yeah. So like that, I don't know if that was something that was nagging that played into the decision making of why he didn't play as much. But I know, like, he was a veteran, so he had to be sat with the veteran rule, and that probably factored into him not playing a whole lot of time either. But yeah, I would say like C plus, B minus. He's unrestricted. I don't know if he comes back. There's just not a whole lot of playing time for him.
There's not. You gotta look at that. You know, a player wants to play. No player likes to sit in the press box, even if they've been around a team for a while. But we do like having him on the team. He does bring some grit, that sandpaper that we do need. But it was weird to bring him in the playoffs, but it also worked really well when we did, and it was a good thing we kind of had him there. He kind of played the same amount of a role in this team this year that Tyler Spezia did, right? That's what I kind of compare it to with games played wise. And who knows where he ends up next year? I don't know, but
hopefully on the ice.
Yeah, somewhere. If it's not with us, somewhere. Hopefully, he ends up on the ice. But he's been fun to watch over the years. He's just a fun element to this team, and he played defensively sound when he needed to. That's all you can ask from a guy who's playing a role like that. On to the next guy. Well, the last guy actually, because sorry to Jared McIsaac, where you played 15 games. We're not gonna give a full recap. You left to Switzerland, and we don't know what's going on there. We really don't know. But last guy is Emil Viro. This is such an interesting prospect. We talk about him all the time. He's got that dog in him. We always say he's the guy that goes out there and he's aggressive. He's hungry. He's good on the offensive side of the puck, but he just played a really limited role this year. He did have an injury he was battling at the beginning of the season as well. We just don't really know what's the story with this guy here. He played 32 games this year. Nick, what do you give Emil Viro for a grade this season?
I'm going to give him a B minus. He's like you said, he's such an interesting prospect, and it's trying to figure out like what is going on, what were they doing with him, because he only played 32 games. This was his second year. He played less games this year than he did last year. Same goal total, one goal. He had 5 assists this year, 7 assists last year. He was a +5, so he was a better plus minus. He was third best on defense. I mean, I thought that was huge. So when he did play, he was defensively sound, and he chipped in on the offensive side. To me, I just couldn't figure out why they weren't playing him more. When he did play, he was at the bottom of the rotation. I have an interesting note on this. I'm feeling like this might be a lost prospect. Like, I don't think this guy's gonna end up re-signing with us. I think he has the ability to play. I felt he was drafted in the round 3 in 2020, number 70 pick. Sabrango was 63, and Wyatt Kaiser was pick 81.
We don't talk about that guy.
So it's like interesting to see like what we could have like had, how we missed on Sabrango, and we've missed on possibly Viro, and we could have had Wyatt Kaiser. Like, to me, I think that's kind of funny. That's kind of interesting. I thought like he deserved to play. I thought maybe a trip to Toledo would have done him some good, got him some confidence, because when he did play, he played really well. I just wish he had more playing time, and I'm sure he wished the same. I don't think that's his fault, but I don't know. Like, I know he played more games last year than this season, so his stats are going to be better, right? But yeah, it's tough to say. And like, I know the one game he came back, he did really well, and then he was out for injury. So that's just like, I don't know what he was dealing with or handling. So
yeah,
C plus minus.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Did you say B plus C minus?
B minus C plus.
B minus C plus. Okay. I'm gonna go with a C. Just because I don't know. There's a lot of question marks. We said it all season long. If he's healthy and able to play, why isn't he in Toledo getting play time and continuing to develop? I think he would have been a great piece down there for them on the defensive side of things. I think it would have been a great asset. I don't know. He's under contract for this coming season, so we'll see what that looks like. And see if he gets more games in. If it is something where he's injury prone, who knows? Is he a trade piece? Who knows? I really don't know. I mean, we saw a guy like Sabrango get packaged in a trade that Wings fans really like. So we'll see what happens with Emil Viro here. But you kind of said it all for me. There's not really much to add on him there. I like him. I think he's a fun player to watch. I like when he gets aggressive with people out there because it's really funny. But
yeah,
overall, I just don't know. He tore it up in Toledo too. He tore it up when he played down there. Yeah. So the skill is there. I mean, you look at Donovan and you saw, he tore it up in Toledo too, and he struggled in Allen, but then he found his way in Belleville a little bit, played some playoff games in Belleville. And, I don't know. I don't know. Those two defensemen raise a lot of question marks, but you can't hit on them. You can't hit on every prospect. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And we've already hit so many. It was a weird draft, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where he ends up. Very, very curious. There'll be a name I'm looking out for on draft day and all that fun stuff to see if he's a part of a trade. But outside of that, man, that does wrap up our defensive grades for this season for all our defensemen for the Grand Rapids Griffins. What would you give overall to the Griffins defense this season of a grade if you had to?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably say like B+. Yeah, I would say B+.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the exact same grade. The improvement from last year to this year was just mind-blowing. That's what happens when you have a defensive-minded head coach and a fantastic, defenseman as your assistant coach. And I mean, look at the defensive prospects that we had in this team this year. It's just kind of unfair to everybody else, but they did play an outstanding year. And yeah, it was a fun one. I'm excited to see. I think they're going to be just as good on defense next season too. There's so much potential for this team to be absolutely lethal on defense if players follow the development path. So who knows?
Really? You think they'll be better next year?
No, I said just as good.
Just as good?
Just as good. I think they'll be just as good as this year on defense. I think they might get a little bit more help on the defensive side from the forwards this coming season. I think they lacked a little bit of that in parts of the season, especially early on. But I think it's crazy, right? But I think, there's one key piece that I know knows how to play a 200-foot game that I'll put money on it now. I think you and I both agree on this, that Nate Danielson will be a Grand Rapids Griffin at the start of the season, 100%. So, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the right move for the organization. And I'm excited for it. I think we're both selfishly hoping that the organization follows that path. And based on what we saw in the limited time he was playing in Grand Rapids, granted that was after a very long season in junior, a long playoff run, had to be gassed trying to fit in with this team. We think there's a lot more time for him to still develop. At least one full season probably in Grand Rapids, if not at least 75% of this coming season. I think he's here.
Yeah, I think Prashant put it out there of Marco on the third line, and I think if Marco's up, then you put Nate in that second line center. I think that's
we'll lose some grittiness there, but all the offensive upside's still there, if not more. So it'll be interesting to see. That's going to be such a fun prospect to watch this coming season. I can't wait to talk more about him. Hopefully all season long.
I feel like there were so many prospects, and it was like trying to keep an eye on all of them, and it was very hard. So now that some are graduating, it'll be good to keep an eye on one or two.
Yeah, I mean, we started this podcast midway through the terrible last season and talking about there's a few prospects here and there, but there was not what we saw this season. The 1.13 prospects on this Griffins team, and all of them I think did fantastic this year. That's a very young AHL team to go out there and do what they did this year. So overall, I'm impressed, and I'm excited for this next season, and all the off-season fun we're gonna have, and all that. It's gonna be crazy. But
yeah, I think next we got coaches and goalies on the Griffin side.
Yep, we'll talk coaches and goalies, and in the background on everybody, we've been doing some interviews that we'll be releasing in July. More Toledo stuff that I think the Toledo fans will really love. We have some Griffins interviews in the works as well, so stay tuned for that. And we've got so much going on. We have decided that we are not going to take it easy this offseason, and we are just going full bore. We took our week off. We've got the draft on Friday. Free agency opens up next week. It's it's going to get stupid insane around here. We might get a break at the end of July, to kind of relax before training camp and everything else kicks off. So who knows? But this is going to be a fun off season for everybody that is tuning into the show for sure. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming.
I'm excited. I'm going to have more time, so it'll be good.
I'm excited for that too. Trust me. Very excited for that. With that, man, anything else you want to add to this episode here before we wrap this up?
No, I'm excited for the draft. I'm not sure what I'm doing yet. I might jump on another pod and do that, or might just enjoy it. So excited for that now that we're now in the off season, technically, with both teams winning the cups. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I have to work during the draft, so yay. Super excited. Hopefully it's like the NFL draft where it takes like 20 minutes per pick and I'll still get to see our pick. So who knows? I'll be glued to my phone while I'm still working. Don't let my boss hear that. But with that, we will wrap this episode up. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Hockeytown West podcast. We want to make sure I thank our sponsors as well. Shout out to Everything Hockey. Make sure to go to everythinghockey.com. Use code WEST. Save $3 off your order. Then shout out to our other sponsors, DraftKings and Manscaped as well. And, of course, the Hockey Podcast Network for all of their support and everything they do for us. We appreciate them. Appreciate you, sir. Appreciate everyone else. Have a fantastic week. Enjoy the draft, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy and Brandon at BrandonGR Hockey.